The gathering place, and the important gathering above Exhibition Place in downtown Toronto is a gathering of clouds. Weather will be very much a factor in final qualifying for round 10 of the Bridgestone Presents the Champ Car World Series, powered by Ford, the Molson Grand Prix of Toronto. But the weather is just one of our stories. For more, let's go to the pit lane and Derek Daly.
Indeed, one of the lead stories this weekend has to be the Newman Haas team. Young French rookie Sébastien Bourdais, who was so dominant in Cleveland just about a week ago, came here with no experience, and of course the weather washed out the first practice session. Yesterday he could only manage 10th in qualifying, but this morning when it dried out, guess what? Sébastien Bourdais was on top form and was the fastest man in the session. Now his teammate, of course, Bruno Junqueira, sits right beside him in the pit lane. This team that look after Bruno just sensed that about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, Bruno became a changed man. There's a bounce in his step, there's an air of confidence about him, and yesterday, even in somewhat difficult conditions, Bruno Junqueira went out and took the provisional pole. He is yet to have an official pole this season and has yet to win a race. Despite that, he's just below the radar, and he is second in the championship. But now the main focus here in Canada could well be with the Canadians. For more on that story, let's go to Calvin Fish.
Well, Derek, when these Canadian drivers hit town, the media and fan attention turns into a frenzy, and they're being pulled in all types of directions but one. The only respite they get is when they actually get behind the wheel of the race car, and yesterday they had the opportunity to do that in first round qualifying. For Paul Tracy, he sat on the pole until the final moments of qualifying, and then he was pipped by Bruno Junqueira. For his teammate Patrick Carpentier, handling and brake problems left him 7th on the grid, but in this morning's practice session, he rebounded to be 2nd fastest. Now for Tagliani, what an impressive performance by that young man. First-year team Rocket Sports Racing, 5th on the grid. He always runs well here at Toronto. But for all three of these guys, they certainly want to be top dog on home turf this weekend.
Veteran Champ Car fans know, wet or dry, the cars go out. And the racers will tell you the only thing worse than a full wet session is a combined wet-dry session. And that's what we have in final qualifying for the Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Toronto, live here on Speed Channel. Welcome to Exhibition Place in Toronto, Canada. I'm Bob Varsha. Glad to have you with us despite the weather conditions. With 9 races down and 10 to go, we are at the midway point of the 2003 Champ Car season. And the 2 dominant teams thus far have been Newman Haas Racing and Players Foresight. Here's a look at the championship standings after yesterday's first round of qualifying by Bruno Junqueira, who picked up a bonus championship point and guaranteed front row start for Sunday's race. He is just 7 points behind Players Foresight team leader Paul Tracy. Tracy's teammate Patrick Carpentier has 1 win and stands 4th coming into the weekend, while Junqueira's teammate Sébastien Bourdais has 3 victories, matching Tracy for the series high, and he is 5th in the championship. All 5 winners thus far are represented in the points, as you just saw. Joining me for this afternoon, Scott Pruitt and Tommy Kendall. Tommy, Bruno Junqueira and Sébastien Bourdais have been dominant, but I have a feeling that Paul Tracy may have something to say today.
Well, obviously, Paul's the guy that's been getting all the headlines this year, which is what makes it so interesting about Bruno. We have hardly talked about Bruno, and the reason is because he has not really been a threat to win a race all year long. But he's only 7 points out of the championship lead. Now, we gave Bruno a hard time all last year and this year for being a bit of a drama queen. But the reason he came into this season as a major favorite is because he was the best qualifier outside of Cristiano D'Amata, and he ran well on all types of circuits. If he can hit his stride at all, he is poised very well for a major stretch run.
He has definitely been the stealth runner thus far. Now, Scott, you and I have been talking, and I think you think we're making too much out of this Newman Haas versus Players thing.
I don't think we're making too much out of it, but we can't forget Michel Jourdain in Rahal. Won a race this year, could have easily won Long Beach as well as coming back at Portland. This guy, we saw last year, Mr. Consistency, couldn't get it done qualifying. This year coming back very strong in qualifying. And in fact, just being around him, you sense that this guy's aggressive. He wants to get the job done, and he's not willing to take chances, as we saw Portland a few weeks ago. he needs to get some more points up on the board, and I believe that these guys can make it happen. So I think it's not a 2-team race, but a 3-team race for the championship.
Well, Jourdain has won a race, and let's not forget Adrian Fernandez is also in the win column this year, his first as a driver owner. But let's get back to Newman Haas, since they seem to have the upper hand here at this racetrack. Over the years, they have won 6 times, once by last year's champion Cristiano D'Amata, 5 by Michael Andretti, to go with 2 poles and 12 total podiums. For players, no wins here at Exhibition Place, just 1 pole and 2 podiums. Now, is Bruno Junqueira the man this weekend? He went out late in the session yesterday, gambling that it would not rain. It did not. He is on provisional pole. Meanwhile, Calvin Fish is standing by with the man Junqueira bumped from provisional pole.
Well, I'm here with the Thrill from West Hill. He's got all his fans standing beside him here, pointing to one of his buddies in the stands. Paul, you're in the thick of a championship battle, a great battle last week with Bruno Junqueira. Does his consistency concern you, even though you have the championship lead right now?
It does a little bit, because he hasn't had any bad luck to date yet. I mean, he complains a lot about bad luck in qualifying and getting held up, but he's finished every race so far this year in the top 5, and that's enabled him to be really close. We've had 3 bad races, which really hurt us a lot for points, but we've been consistent. I've been consistently ahead of him every race, but we had those 3 bad races.
Newman Haas has won here at Toronto 6 times. Players have never won. It's like a Ferrari not winning in Italy. Put that into perspective. How do you feel about this weekend?
Well, it's big. I mean, you see the fans behind us here. It's this is a big thing for players and the team to try to achieve a win here. I've done it before. I've done it here in Vancouver, but to do it in this car would be a huge monument, not only for the team but also for all the Canadian fans.
Well, certainly starting up front is really a priority for Paul this afternoon, but conditions right now, Bob, really tricky. What will happen this afternoon?
Tricky is right, Calvin. I just saw this year is the 10th anniversary of Paul's victory here in Toronto. Of course, that was not with his current team. Now, a week ago in Cleveland, Sebastian Bourdais just got by Paul Tracy on the exit of his 3rd pit stop, went on to dominate the race from there, and picked up his 3rd victory of the year, his 1st on American soil, and that was a real problem for Bourdais. He desperately wanted to win in America. There is last weekend's winner suiting up. He was just 10th in the first round of qualifying, but I suspect after today's practice, in which he was very quick, we'll see more out of Bourdais in the final qualifying.
Well, the thing about it, he doesn't have a chance to move up other than if he's quickest today. If the rain keeps pissing down like it is now, it's just a slight sprinkle, but it's been almost the same all day long. And so that will take enough of the edge off the grip. They'll probably run on slick tires, but they won't be able to run as quickly as yesterday. But there is whoever is quickest today will sit on the front row next to Bruno Junqueira.
That's going to be tricky here this weekend. With these conditions, when do you go, when do you stay, when do we make that play? Right now, we're seeing quite a bit of rain coming down. Actually, it's getting a little heavier than what we've seen. That's going to be a big play, and that's ultimately going to decide if these guys can go out and challenge him on a dry track for the pole for tomorrow.
I agree with you, Scott. The rain is getting heavier. This is going to be a very interesting qualifying session. And you can see the Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Toronto tomorrow, Sunday, beginning at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on CBS Sport. So check your local listings. As the rain can come down, we'll be back in a moment to Toronto. Of qualifying for the Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Toronto is brought to you by Bridgestone Tires, advanced technology that gives you a grip on the future. By Ford. If you haven't looked at Ford lately, look again. And by Selsun Blue. Never wear black without the blue. Selsun Blue. Welcome back live to Exhibition Place in Toronto, Canada. I'm Bob Varsha with Scott Pruitt, Tommy Kendall. The rain continues to mist down, and that will give the racers plenty of problems in this final qualifying session coming up. Let's get right to the pit lane and Calvin Fish.
Well, this is normally the only way these Canadian drivers to hide is with a balaclava on and helmet on as Patrick Carpentier gets ready for qualifying. Pat, it's a really busy week for you guys when you come to Toronto. How much pressure is on you here in Toronto this weekend to get a win for players?
Yeah, it's always a little bit more when you're in Canada, but here in Toronto, I think Petey has a bit more pressure, so I'll leave it to him this week. But want to do well, want to qualify well. Didn't go well yesterday. We had a problem with the car and the brakes, and so hopefully today we get up in the top 3. That's what we want. Then it takes a lot of pressure away.
Okay, well, a top front row starting spot is what he's looking for. Let's go down to Derek Daly.
Alex Tagliani is just getting ready to get in here. Tag, Canada, Canadian, big pressure.
Well, there's always a little bit more pressure because you want to do well in front of your fans, but I guess it's positive pressure. I would not mind having 20 races in Canada.
I agree. Have a look at it this here. This is what Tag uses, this little piece of race tape, just to hold the visor cracked open to get airflow so as it doesn't fog up inside and, of course, obscure his vision.
And that could be a big problem. It is very, very humid here in Toronto. We saw that a week ago in Cleveland. In fact, Sebastian Bourdais won the race, climbed out of his car, and his eyeglasses were completely fogged over. Coming up later today here on Speed Channel, check out the AMA Superbikes live from Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. It's a World Superbike weekend in Monterey, California. Check out the AMA Superbikes live beginning at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Talk to you in a moment from Toronto. To cloudy and drippy Exhibition Place in Toronto, Canada. Qualifying coming up in a moment. Here's a program note. The Toyota Atlantic Championship, top step of kart's driver development ladder, is also racing here today in Toronto. You can see it beginning at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Speed Channel. We're just a few seconds away from the green flag for a 10-minute practice session, after which we'll have a 10-minute break during which the crews can work on the cars. Then the field will be on track for 40 minutes of qualifying. See the cars making their way out along Prince's Boulevard that makes up the front stretch on this street circuit here at Toronto that's seen so many great races over the years. And one of the key features of Prince's Boulevard is Prince's Gate, which looms above the camera you're looking through right now. As the cars make their way out, Scott Pruitt, you've been around this track in a Champ car. Tell us what you need to go quickly here.
Well, there's a couple things. Down in turn 1 here, heavy braking area. You got to get the car so it's good and controlled. I'm sorry, as you get down into turn 3, you're running about 180 miles right down to 40. Coming right there, you need good power down traction. These guys are fighting, especially with no traction control. Through here, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 all have the center of the turn is cement. So you transition from an asphalt to cement and back to asphalt. That's one of the keys to get the car over the top and still controlled as you get from the asphalt to the cement and then back to the asphalt. It's a good shot on board with Darren Manning. Going down into turn 1. Braking. Off to the right. You can see that. See the cement on the inside there? Drifts out, clear the wall. Hard down. Straight up through the gears, right up to 7th. Down the back straight. In fact, we'd be looking for a place that kind of goes the inside, back to the outside, looking for that smooth line down the back straight. Heavy braking. This is a passing zone. You see the cement again. Power down traction. This is going to be critical, especially when they start wearing off some of those Bridgestone tires. On and off the cement patch. Up to the gears. Sweeper to the right. Next thing, clear to the fence. Now you should be flat all the way through here. Which he is. Downshifting again. Very bumpy. You see the car jumping around on him. Hit the curve on the inside. This is a combination of a left, right, left. You've got to carry a lot of speed through here if you're going to generate that lap time you need to go fast around Toronto.
The thing to watch, the important thing about those, well, we're going to go to Friday first.
On board with Max Pappas, who has actually been reasonably quick this weekend. Has a chance of a top 10 start today. Tracy was fast for most of the session, but then he spun, bringing out the dreaded red flag, and with it, he lost his fastest lap. Oriol Servia in the Visteon car, very quick as well, as was Adrian Fernandez, the winner at Portland, who had such a difficult weekend last weekend in Cleveland. Sebastian Bourdais, the winner in Cleveland, surprisingly not fast, just 10th on the session. His teammate, Bruno Junqueira, seemed to have it all down. Team owner Carl Haas congratulated his man after his last hot lap nipped Paul Tracy for the provisional pole. Here are the results of first round qualifying. Jourdain third, Servia wound up fourth. Then Alex Tagliani, who interestingly was the quickest driver in one of the morning practices in the wet. Adrian Fernandez sixth, Patrick Carpentier seventh. He's not had much luck in qualifying here in Toronto. His best qualifying ever, 12th. Jimmy Vasser was 11th, followed by Mario Dominguez and Max Pappas. Thiago Montero back after that mild concussion he suffered in Cleveland that kept him out of that Saturday night race. Alex Sparafico makes his debut with Dale Coyne Racing this weekend, a 2-race deal. We'll also see him in Miami later this year. On board with Patrick Carpentier.
Again, a good shot going down the back straight. Tommy, I know that you've raced here in Trans Am. We've both been here. Good passing area down here, but a lot of times the guy can overshoot slightly and end up getting by a guy, and then the guy takes a shot right back up.
Now, we've saw it. You can actually pass people on the outside under braking there. Towards the end of the races, Michael Andretti, that one charge he had from the extreme back here, guys lose the balance under braking for whatever reason down there into turn 3. Even if people defend, which you can't do any longer in the Champ Car Series, guys were able to get a run on the outside. So really, even though it's a tight street course with walls on all sides, they've moved the walls back on the apexes, so guys can use the curb a little bit. But the thing you talked about, the concrete patches, it's hard to, the reason it's important to talk about is the grip level. Sometimes it's not too different from asphalt to concrete. Here, the grip on the concrete, especially early in the weekend, is almost non-existent. So when you turn in, the whole car just slides sideways, and then you get to the asphalt and it hooks up. And it really feels like you hit that concrete, you feel like you're crashing, all of a sudden you get to the asphalt and it hooks up. Really difficult challenge for setup.
We saw some breakup on our onboard camera. I'm afraid we're destined to struggle with it a little bit with this very heavy and very low cloud cover that will obstruct the signal to our helicopter overhead. More on Paul Tracy with Calvin.
Well, Paul Tracy doing some warm-up laps here. In this morning's practice session, he was stranded down in 12th position, really struggling with the car a little bit because he lost the gearbox. He wasn't getting the selection that he was looking for. He parked the car, lost a lot of the session there, and they looked into it in between these two sessions to this afternoon and found they really couldn't fix the primary gearbox. They had to switch the old back end of the car. So right now, Paul's just checking things out, but the conditions right now are really not conducive to full lap speeds in terms of a perfectly dry racetrack. So he's just going to try and see if the gearbox is fine.
In fact, the last two drivers on track were Paul Tracy and the provisional pole sitter, Bruno Junqueira. Swinging uphill at turn 3 onto Ontario Drive, then Prince's Boulevard, Manitoba Drive, Nova Scotia Drive, all the streets here at Exhibition Place, named for elements of the Canadian culture. Beautiful city is Toronto. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back. As you can see, raindrops on the camera lens. It is raining harder here at Exhibition Place. We welcome you back to live final round qualifying for Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Toronto. And a special hello to all of our Canadian viewers here on Speed Channel. Glad to be with you here on this admittedly damp weekend. Tomorrow is supposed to be fair, great racing weather. There's Mario Dominguez making his way around. We are still in our 10-minute practice period before we have a 10-minute break. Then we will qualify under the green flag. Over 43,000 fans turned out yesterday for the first round of practice and qualifying with the Champ Cars. We have a lot of Hardy fans here again today. There's Max Pappas.
Now this is going to be interesting to see how all this plays out. If the rain starts coming down harder, which we're seeing right now, a car could actually determine a wet session, and then the laps are not counted. If they're back on dries, then the 15-lap number will be counted. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next 15 minutes before we go green for the actual qualifying session.
Laps not counted. What Scott means is there is an unlimited number of laps available to a driver, timed laps in wet qualifying. Only 15 when the track is dry.
And this wet second day means a difference, a big difference. Usually the payout, so to speak, can be win, play, show. If you have a bad day on Saturday or Friday and you have a relatively good run, you can launch yourself all the way up to 5th. Everyone, if it's wet at all, everyone will be locked into where they were except the one guy. So all the spoils will go to the one guy who is quickest. Someone who does not have a legit shot, generally speaking, at the pole. It'd be interesting to see if everybody goes out. But by the same token, you can't totally game that because a guy like Max Pappas, who hasn't been particularly quick so far with PKR, was quick this morning when it was wet. And so guys that you wouldn't normally expect. So it's really an unusual session, and it's all, for all the marbles. If you don't end up in second, you're stuck where you were yesterday.
Here's a look at the Scientific Atlanta card. Max Pappas talking with his engineers. Some fans told us via email they thought we were a little hard on Mad Max at Cleveland, where he was cited by several drivers as holding them up. But we said it then, we'll say it again now. Max is a proven winner, and he'll be back up front sometime soon. There is Max working with the crew.
We weren't the only ones actually saying that. After the race, I talked to Chris Neifel, and I talked to a number of the drivers, and virtually all anyone wanted to talk about was Max holding them up when they were lapping. So, I mean, obviously that was not a great situation for Max, and we know he can do better than that, and I'm sure he's equally frustrated by it. But at the same time, while it was going on, it was something that maybe in hindsight, Max would do something differently, at least as far as racing so hard to stay on the lead lap.
Patrick Carpentier, fast man in the session. Mad Max, 19th. But that was in the changing conditions. Here's a look at the runners. Carpentier and Bourdais up top. So Sebastian is on the way back, followed by Jourdain and Moreno. Ryan Hunter-Reay, rookie with American Spirit Team Johansson, in 9th place. Jimmy Vasser, his teammate, 10th. There's Bruno Junqueira, the provisional pole sitter, in 14th. One spot behind Paul Tracy. The only two men under 60 seconds in cumulative lap time yesterday. We're in the middle of our break before we qualify under the green flag. We've seen many great moments, many thrilling moments here at Toronto over the years, but we have also seen sadness here as well. Like the rest of his generation of California racers, Jeff Krosnoff got his first taste of the sport at the Champ Car event in Long Beach. Unlike his peers, Krosnoff's dream of racing a Champ Car came true. That dream ended in Toronto in 1996 when Krosnoff and corner worker Gary Avrin lost their lives in an accident at Turn 3, a spot now marked by a memorial plaque. Krosnoff's memory also lives on through a scholarship maintained by his widow Tracy and his many friends of the sport. Jeff Krosnoff was a California kid who will always be a part of history, a country away in Toronto. Welcome back to Toronto. And final qualifying coming up for the Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Toronto. If it's Saturday, Speed News must be coming your way here on Speed Channel. Join Dave Despain and Steve Burns tonight for Speed News Saturday, beginning at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, updating the weekend in motorsports, including events here at Exhibition Place in Toronto. We are in our break between practice and qualifying. There you see the players' team gathering to talk things over. This has been an interesting weekend for them. An important announcement on Thursday. It was hosted by the company president and CEO, Bob Bexon. In 1961, racing legend Sir Sterling Moss won the Players 200 at Mossport in Ontario, the first international motorsports event staged in Canada. 5 years later, Players sponsored the first race in the history of the Can-Am Series at the circuit Mount Tremblant. In 1967, Canada celebrated its centennial in style with the Players Grand Prix at Mossport, the first Formula One race in Canada. The 1970s saw the birth of the Players Challenge Series, which helped introduce American audiences to Formula Atlantic racing and talented drivers such as Gilles Villeneuve and Bill Brack. For more than 4 decades, Players has funded young Canadian racing drivers, as well as the winningest team this year in Champ Car racing. But Players is a tobacco company, and this week, the company announced the end of its motorsport sponsorships.
In 1997, the federal government introduced new legislation containing a series of regulations and restrictions pertaining to the tobacco industry. And part of this legislation, unfortunately, banned sponsorship as of October 2003. We are taking our leave with a great deal of reluctance and sadness, but also with considerable pride in what has been accomplished in the last 42 years.
And, well, the company should be proud of its efforts over the years, backing great young Canadian drivers, including the late Greg Moore, a true Champ Car star. But much like R.J. Reynolds Tobacco is leaving Winston Cup racing, and its other sponsorship commitments. So players here in Canada will be moving on in the face of public pressure. Let's go down to Derek Daly in the pit lane.
Don't underestimate how big a blow this can be for Canadian motorsports, because the Players Driver Development Program has been phenomenal over the years. World champion Jacques Villeneuve, remember, came through that program. The last time I drove Formula One in the early 80s, Elf Petroleum, a French petroleum company, backed the French Driver Development Program. At that time, there were 7 French Grand Prix drivers. When Elf pulled out, within 7 years, there were no French Grand Prix drivers in Formula One anymore. So I really feel bad for the up-and-coming young Canadians who no longer have the type of support that I believe allows those young drivers to be ambassadors for countries to wave their flag high. I don't know where that money is going to come from to support these athletes in the future. Calvin?
Derek, I'm standing by with Michael Valiante, one of the leading lights in the Toyota Atlantic Championship and on the brink of breaking into Champ Car racing. Michael, put into perspective the players' announcement, what it means to these young Canadian drivers.
Well, I think it's a little disappointing because they've been so instrumental in developing so many great drivers like Jacques Villeneuve, Paul Tracy, Carpentier, and so on. So it's a little disappointing, but at the same time, you know, I've signed a contract with Walker for 2004, 2005. So it's a great opportunity for me there. We're just going to finalize the whole program.
Okay, well, Michael will start third today on the Atlantic grid, looking for a win and trying to break through and win that championship before he moves on. But that's big news, just announced here today, that Michael should be in Champ Car racing next year with Derek.
No question about that, Calvin. And Alex Tagliani was one of several very outspoken drivers about how much it's going to hurt Canadian racing not to have that font of money there to help promote careers.
Well, it's those guys like Jacques Villeneuve. It's quite possible. He was in Japan racing F3. It's quite possible Jacques Villeneuve would not have had a major motorsports career without players. And a lot of these guys owe at least some, maybe all of their career opportunities to players.
You need to be in a position to have somebody like players to see you and to help you with that opportunity. There's a lot of young drivers out here, a lot of young talent, but sometimes nobody will ever see them because they don't have anybody help them out. That's a big challenge that a lot of American drivers have, and certainly without a big benefactor like players who believe in the Canadians and making a mark for Canadians, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be extremely difficult and a big blow to all of motorsports, not just kart, but all of motorsports across the board.
And everyone understands the issues involving smoking, but no matter where you come down on those issues, the fact remains that that funding will be very much missed. We'll take a break. Be back to Go Green for qualifying. Mission Place, site of the Canadian National Exhibition, and the annual visit by the Bridgestone presents the Champ Car World Series powered by Ford. As you can see, clouds overhead, but for the moment there is no rain falling. It's dry, and more than half the field launched into the pit lane to begin each driver's 15 timed laps. Give you a look at the weather conditions. You see standing water at the bottom of your screen. There are puddles here and there off the racing line around the track. Well, can't get more even than that. Air temperature and track temperature hovering at 67 degrees with a strong southwesterly breeze and showers very much in the forecast. So the dice roll has begun. Several top drivers in the pit lane, several others out on track, including that man, Patrick Carpentier. Calvin Fish.
Bob, here we're looking at the significance of sitting on the first day pole. Bruno Junqueira is locked into the front row. Whatever happens today, and everyone else is getting antsy out on the racetrack. Paul Tracy is actually waiting along with a couple of others. Bruno Junqueira, the wheels aren't even on the car right now. They can afford to sit, play this game a little bit longer than the other guys. If they get it wrong, they'll start second. If they get it right, they may be on the pole.
This is what these guys have to do right now. Because the conditions are dry and overhead it's very, very dark, you got to play those cards. The track is dry, go out and make that lap happen. If you can do it good right now, there is a chance to throw Junqueira off the provisional pole. Carpentier just went by and ran a 1:01 his first lap out. So that shows me that already it looks like the conditions are pretty good for these guys to go out and take a shot.
Yesterday, Paul Tracy put up a big time early and then went on and ran out his 15 laps, leaving about 10 minutes on the clock. And as the drivers ticked off their 15 laps, it left a lot of open track. And Bruno Junqueira, one of the last men on track, pipped him for the provisional pole with its championship bonus point and guaranteed front row starting position. Derek Daly.
Although you would think brand new sticker tires is the perfect way to go to do a qualifying run, because these are somewhat iffy conditions, Most drivers ran their brand new stickers in that last 10 minutes, just a lap to scuff them. I'm standing here with Max Pappas, and he has just one lap scuff in case it is a little bit damp or cool and they don't quite have time to get the sticker or that sheen off the brand new tires before they put in that magic lap.
Down here with Paul Tracy. Paul, you're sitting and waiting. What do you do now? Do you wait for these guys to complete their run and get a clear track, or do you go now?
Well, I think it's not raining right now, so we're going to wait and see if we can get a little bit of rubber on the track and then really make a good shot at it and see if we can get the pole. But, you know, the track has got no rubber. So we're going to wait till mostly all the fast guys went except me and Bruno, so we're going to wait till they put some rubber on the track.
Okay, well, he's...
Sorry, Calvin, we lost your microphone there at the end. Weather and the rain gets into all sorts of electrical connections here. So Paul Tracy is going with sort of a modified strategy. He's watching the clouds, but he's also watching the clock, and he wants somebody to take their first run on stickers, and then he'll go out.
That's a bit of a high-stakes strategy, and to me, that shows the attention and the importance of this race creeping into their strategy, because while the track is dry, and they run the chance if the track is quick, they're gambling that it's not, and that's why they're doing it. But if the track is quick and some guys get some good times, and Carpentier, he runs a 59.5, which is quicker than Paul's lap from yesterday. So the track is in good shape. If a number of guys bump Paul back, he goes out, and then it starts raining. That's why it's high stakes for him. Bruno can afford to do it, and while the track is quick, it's really high stakes for Paul. I would expect them to fire that player's Lola up and get him out there quickly.
They need to make it happen right now, because we're seeing some times Carpentier 59.5 and Jourdain a 59.6. That's only a 10th off, and Jourdain is on track right now. We're on board with Michel.
And Paul just fired up and left the pits.
But the wheels have not been put on Bruno Junqueira's car yet.
Great shot to the back of the track.
Alex Tagliani has gone under 60 seconds at 59.8. Excuse me, Oriol Servia. Alex Tagliani is right at the cusp, 60.283.
He's going to, Jourdain, you saw Jourdain slow down. He's looking for some running room, but in a moment, he's going to be caught up by Tagliani, who's probably on a flyer.
And that shows you exactly the dynamic that leads to so many guys being upset after these qualifying sessions. A guy's on a quick one, and another guy's trying to get staged for one, and he's backing off to create a gap. If everyone was in sync, slowing down and speeding up in frequency, but they get out of phase, and that's where the tempers start flaring.
Looking at Sebastian Bourdais, always quick in qualifying. He had McDonald's sponsorship on the car in Cleveland. If you're wondering where it is now, it is a 3-race deal. We'll also see it at Denver and in Miami. And right now, McDonald's is 1 for 1 in races as a sponsor at Newman Haas Racing. They changed the color scheme over from predominantly black and white on the Lily car to red and white in honor of the new sponsorship. Bourdais said afterwards, "I'm glad. I was beginning to think that black on the car was bad luck."
He either needs to slow down or get by Levin right now, because this is going to screw up his next lap. You see, he's not going to. Actually, looks like no, he's not going to. So this lap is already messed up for him. He should have slowed down and gapped it out. Now you see it making it happen, but he's just wasting this lap.
I think what he was trying to do is he had a quick one going, and I think he was hoping that he didn't get slowed up too much. As it turns out, he tried to get and Max Pappas around backwards. I think that's heading from 4 to 5.
That's probably going to bring out a red. It's not out yet, but it looks like he's actually stalled. Yeah, that will definitely bring out a red here. So a lot of these guys who are making this run, now everything gets disrupted because of this red.
So their lap is gone as well. And now the red flag finally comes out. Bit of a delay in getting it out there. They see it waved by the corner worker at the back. And that means that Max Pappas will lose his quickest lap of the session. Right now, he is 15th on the provisional grid. That will not help. Our top 5 right now: Junqueira, Carpentier, Jourdain, Tagliani, and Tracy. We'll be back with more from Toronto in a moment.
Back, everybody, to the streets of Toronto, Canada. We are under a red flag situation to gather up this man's car, Max Pappas. This is Kevin Kalkoven. You may not be very familiar with Kevin Kalkoven yet, but you will be. He is the K of PK Racing, P being Craig Pollock. And Kevin, I don't want to put you on the spot, but there's lots of rumors about the potential purchase of a kart. Some people have you in the middle of the mix. Is there any truth to that?
Well, all I can say is there are a bunch of folks inside and outside the sport who are very committed to making sure this series continues. And, you know, CART have announced that they have hired some bankers, and, you know, we're going to make sure that somehow this all works out.
Kevin, the question that we get from the fans is, should we be concerned? From your point of view, do you see a bright future, Kevin?
Absolutely. I think, you know, there's obviously always an opportunity to be concerned, but I think we'll be here next year. I mean, I think this is just too much of a spectacle. It's too much of a great race series. Look at these stands here. I mean, this is practice and qualifying, and they are packed. You know, this is a race series people want. We're going to do our damnedest to make sure it's successful.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin Kalkoven actually has his own SCCA racing license. He's a very interesting man, comes from Australia. I did see the picture of his old home, and it is a galvanized tin roof in the bush of Australia. So Kevin has come from interesting means and has come a long, long way and really now enjoys his motor racing.
That he is. Thanks very much, Derek. Here's Mad Max, who will now lose his fastest lap of the session, so he'll need a couple of quick orbits if he can beat the weather. And here's what happened. He's climbing through turn 3. Ooh, did he get into that left side wall? Doesn't look like he hit it.
Just bumped it.
Let's see
We're
from
talking
outside.
about coming off the end of the straight. It's easy. Get the thing lit up, get it around. Just kind of slides back. Whoop. You just see it folded into. And right now, as we sit out here, we can see rain coming in. And I don't know, but this might be the end of the session
across the lake.
as far as getting the job done.
And those fans who have been here all day and they're waiting for the Atlantic race coming up later today don't appear to be budging. Just get out the poncho, get out the umbrella, sit here and wait for the cars to go back out. Calvin.
Down here with Mike Cannon, Patrick's engineer. Patrick's fastest right now. You must be doing your rain dance, I assume.
Oh, absolutely. I'm dancing inside, believe me. We got a pretty good car. I mean, I'd almost like to see it go dry so we can take a real kick at the cat, see if we can knock Junkie off the top of the heap.
How were the track conditions? You got out first, got a good run in. How close to optimum temperatures with the racetrack and conditions did Pat have for that run?
I mean, he reckoned it was pretty good. The track wasn't too bad. We made some changes on the car. It definitely made it a lot nicer to drive, too. So that combination gave him that lap time, and he says, you know, there's still quite a bit left in it. So we'll see what happens if it dries out.
Okay, well, conditions changing here literally every 30 seconds, Bob.
That they are, Calvin. And we need to give a shout out to Michael Cannon. He comes from good racing roots. His father, John Cannon, won the first Can-Am race ever held at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca in Monterey, California. Let's go back to Derek Daly now.
A very good job yesterday in qualifying was the Walker Racing entry, the Reynard of Darren Manning. Derek, he'd never been here before. It was iffy weather conditions, so you have to be quite pleased at his 6th fastest time yesterday.
Very much so, Derek. I mean, we played the weather right. The car was pretty decent. Track was changing, you know, every lap, so we got it in. But of course, today, everything's changed. We got a few more cars up there, so we're going to be under a bit of pressure in this session. So we just hope the rain hangs off long enough.
I know going fast is a compromise. What would be the main issues you hear him trying to address as he tries to get this car to go faster?
Well, for us this weekend, it's a bit of everything. We've got a little bit of a loose car going in, so the rear end wants to slide more, too much so going in. And then in the middle of the corner, we pick up a bit of an understeer. So we're battling both, but we're working on the entry being the most critical at the moment.
Thank you, Derek. And of course, Derek has the NTN sponsorship, Canadian sponsor here. Derek, if I could just ask you, we're in Canada. Michael Valiante, one of Canada's brightest young stars. We know he has an association with you. Any plans to throw him in at the deep end anytime in the future?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'd love to run a car next year for Michael. In fact, he's sitting up in the scoring stand right now, just giving us a hand on what we're doing today. But no,
giving Darren advice?
We're giving Darren some advice, yeah. Just what a driver needs is another driver sitting in the scoring stand, isn't it? But no, we've been watching Michael for some time, and we've become good friends, and we've really been trying to put something together. So, you know, if there's anybody out there in Canada looking to spend money in racing and to get a young Canadian back into this kart series, then he's the man I would bet on.
Oh, there's many people, thank you, Derek. Many people think that Michael Valiante is one of the men of the future. Calvin?
Here with Craig Hampton, oversees Sebastian Bourdais. Craig, you had a difficult day yesterday, new rookie on a track, a lot of wet racetrack, but he bounced back strong this morning with the fastest time. You have to be frustrated with the weather.
Yeah, it's just been a disaster of a weekend with the weather, I think, not just for us, but for every rookie. In the wet, you know, we couldn't learn the track. The very first laps we did on dry tires were actually during qualifying, and it didn't go so well. He did a good job this morning. We figured it all out, but now it's raining again. And, you know, we just had a time that very close to what Carpentier would have done, and we got traffic. We had to follow Levin around through 8, 9, 10, and 11, and it's just not our weekend, it seems like. Well, if it dries out, I think we have a good shot, but we got to get a dry patch and no traffic, and we only have one set of tires left to do it.
This young rookie is really impressed with 3 wins, equaling Montoya's record doing that in the first season. But talk about how quickly he adapts to a racetrack. We saw him go to Cleveland for the first time, win the race there. Here this morning, fastest man on the racetrack. It's quite remarkable when he's even pitted up against his teammate Bruno.
Yeah, he learns tracks really quickly. I think the Formula 3000 experience suits him well to get up to speed quickly. You know, the problem we've had here isn't his fault or a lack of dealing with Toronto. It's just the fact that in the entire first practice, it rained the whole time. So, you know, he's never been here. Some of these other guys have run it in Atlantics or Lights or whatever, and it's just a hard situation to drop them into, and I have a feeling we're going to be starting 8th or 9th or something like that. Let's hope it clears up.
Fingers crossed for Craig. Bob?
Well, it's worth noting, Calvin, this is a street circuit, meaning those unforgiving concrete barriers are right at the edge of the racetrack. And that track is workaday public roads. It is crowned, it is oily, and right now it is wet. We'll be back.
We stand on guard for thee.
Due to some violent content, parental discretion is advised.
Michael Andretti gets tapped. Watch the left front. Ooh, watch this amazing spin without hitting anything. Fernandez has crashed, and Bruno Junqueira. That's Tagliani who lost the left front. This day will go to Dario Franchitti. Don't miss the excitement of the Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Vancouver. From Vancouver, British Columbia, 2 weeks from now, Saturday, July 26th. Qualifying live at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Speed Channel, followed by the race on Sunday beginning at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, only here on Speed. It appears the rain has let up just a bit here at Exhibition Place. The clock continues to tick away, about 20 minutes and 30 seconds remaining in this time-certain schedule. And we have a car headed out. Adrian Fernandez will be on track. Let's go to Derek Daly.
There's a slew of extra cameras following Jimmy Vasser around this weekend because there's a New York production company shooting a pilot of a show, a reality show called The Life of Champs, and they're going to feature Jimmy Vasser on this. Jimmy, we hear about this new reality show called The Life of Champs. How interesting might it be?
I don't know. I just heard about it, and some guys are hanging around, so, you know, obviously not thinking about that right now, Derek. Come on now.
Jimmy, you sit here, you're waiting for the rain to stop. Is it just a sense of frustration that you're sort of trapped inside this weather right now?
Well, everybody's in the same situation, right? So we got a decent run in that last first set of tires. You know, certainly not as good as we'd like, but you know, we're just going to sit and wait here. We got one run to do with our allotment left, so we'll go out with about 9 minutes to go. It seems like it's kind of letting up. I think everybody will kind of rush out at that time, and you know, see. Hopefully, we can get a couple clean laps.
Thanks, Jimmy. Calvin.
Down here with Bruno Junqueira, provisional pole sitter. Bruno, I'm sure you were waiting for rain here today to keep that pole position, but these conditions are changing so rapidly. How nervous are you right now?
I'm okay. I mean, I know that the Pacific car has been good throughout the weekend, and if the track gets dry, I think I can keep the pole. And if it rains, I'll keep the pole anyway. Let's see what's happened.
When you get towards the end here, even if there's a little shower out there, do you go out and just circulate, or keeping the tires for tomorrow, is that more important?
I have plenty of stickers, and if the track starts to dry out, I'm going to go out and try to put a fast lap.
Okay, at least confident either way right now, Bob.
Well, he might be sitting there with a 10th on the field, although it does appear to be lighter out there. We'll see what Adrian Fernandez can come up with. I'm sure everybody lying in the pit lane is going to be watching to see what Adrian can do.
With 18.5 minutes left, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The rain looks like it's lightening up quite a bit. The real key is going to be right here, Adrian Fernandez. He's the first guy to go out. And if he can generate a lap time around a 102, 104, which we'll see here in just a couple seconds, I think you're going to start seeing some other guys getting a little anxious and get out there and try and generate, because the more cars on track, the faster this track's going to dry.
Swinging on to Prince's Boulevard and across the start-finish stripe. 67.7 for Fernandez, and some cars head out. Alex Tagliani, Mario Dominguez, both going out.
And this is the best of things can happen. You get more cars on the track. This thing's going to dry up a little. Even if it's sprinkling down a little bit, it'll stay pretty dry and actually get quicker and quicker, because these cars, as well as the rubber they're putting down, but also the big vacuum cleaners just sucking all the air, all this water straight off the racetrack.
Where are those shadows coming from? Where is the sun shining on this racetrack? I can't believe it.
This really is wacky weather.
At the start-finish line, it looks like we're about to witness Hurricane Toronto.
Watching Adrian right here, it looks like the track is drying up pretty good. He should generate a pretty good lap this time by. He looks pretty tidy. Car's not trying to get away from him much, being pretty aggressive with the throttle.
Currently 9th on the provisional grid.
Talk about the emotional swings during qualifying. Paul Tracy was in second, hoping to have a shot at pole. If the session is wet, maybe one guy can bump him down to third. All of a sudden, it's dry for a few minutes. He's bumped down to fifth. Now, all of a sudden, he's on the defensive, needing it to dry out. He goes out. He's got 2 sets of tires. He only has 1 lap on his first set of tires. He pulls away from his pits right now. But in a 1-hour session, you can be in great shape, terrible shape, maybe okay shape again, and that's just the nature of qualifying.
Oh, sliding through the corner, a 62.5 last time by for Fernandez, coming up on 16 minutes remaining in the session.
All hell's going to break loose within about the next 4 or 5 minutes. These guys, they have the set that they went out on, as well as having another brand new set of Bridgestones to go to. So you're going to see a lot of action here.
Fellas, keep an eye on Michel Jourdain. Scott Remke, Ray Hall's team manager, if he told me the truth, that was the red flags when Max Pappas went off the road, they had a lap quick enough for the pole, which is what he's now out trying to redo.
I've ran a lot of those theoretical laps. What do you think, Tommy?
Every lap that was ever ruined of mine was a pole lap.
It only matters if it shows up on the board.
Well, we know Jourdain is capable of it. We know the car is capable of it. Let's see if he can put the two together. Swinging off of Manitoba Drive onto Nova Scotia. The quick left. Interesting complex here. You really need to get on the gas for this blast onto the start-finish straightaway.
This mad rush here with about 15 minutes to go. 2 sets of tires still left. You're going to hear a lot of guys complaining about traffic. The trick's going to be jumping out there.
Wheels are now on Bruno Junqueira's car, and he sits at the last pit. He has not gone on track. We'll be back in a moment to Toronto. Welcome back to Toronto. The NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series has its home here on Speed Channel. This weekend, the Craftsman trucks are at Kentucky Speedway. Check them out tonight, 8 p.m. live only on Speed Channel. Here in Toronto, it is not raining, but we can see a long way from our announce position. It looks like it's coming, and we have a new pole sitter. That says Bruno Junqueira, but just a second ago, Michel Jourdain went through at 59.2 to knock Junqueira off.
I guess they were telling the truth.
You have to eat our words?
Here he's working his way by Diego Montero. He's caught up in some traffic now.
You made a point during the break, Scott, that you can't just dash out there when you think the rain is coming. You need about 2, 3, maybe even 4 laps to get your Bridgestones up to temperature.
Just like we're seeing with Michel Jourdain. This quickest lap actually was the third time by up to the 4th lap. So for a guy like Jourdain or anybody else, they need to be out there. They need to be making some laps so they can throw these ones together, because you just can't go out and get it done. It's going to take you about 5 minutes to get the job done.
With Paul Tracy down into turn 1.
And with all the other things that are well documented about how hard it is to time everything, worrying about the traffic, tire temperature, tire pressure. The thing that is additional here at Toronto, the pit exit and the first two corners, if you can have everything else perfect, and if a guy comes out of the pits on cold tires, a champ car on cold tires in turn 1 and 2 here, hopeless. You cannot get out of the way, and you're probably 10 seconds slower just down to turn 3.
Now, while this is going on, Bruno Junqueira sits in the pit lane. That's a bit of a surprise to me. He cannot be bumped off the front row, but right now he is P2. Paul Tracy was ahead of the pole pace there. You see the letters in green, 0.3 up on the pole sitting lap. Did he lose too much in that corner?
Here comes the start-finish line.
Tracy to pole, 58.8. Holy mackerel. And Bruno Junqueira remains motionless in the pits to Calvin Fish.
Well, I'm just surprised here, Bob, as you are, that he's sitting here. They're really putting all their eggs in one basket. Unless they want to save a set of tires for tomorrow, I think Bruno should be out there now, because with 12 minutes left, even if he got balked, he may have a chance to get in there, get a second set on. But right now, running down towards the 10-minute mark, he's going to put it all on this one set of tires, and then he has to get a clear lap.
But don't forget his fallback. His fallback position is second. So it's worth that to try to fine-tune it, have everything going in your favor. Could work out, it could not.
Well, you made the point in Cleveland, Tommy, when Paul Tracy brought out the red flag. He needed 2 quick laps to get pole position. Here, Junqueira doesn't need that. He's got second place locked up, but he is 0.6 of a second slower than Tracy's time. That's an awful lot to try to get out there and get in one lap.
It's going to be interesting to see what Bourdais does as well. Here we have a guy quick as this morning, and he's just getting up to speed as well. So there's a number of guys here that have a chance to put their car up at the top of the field.
Jourdain, with whom you ride, currently 3rd on the provisional grid. But again, with a quicker time than Junqueira has. So Jourdain went from pole to P3 inside row 2 because Junqueira, under the rules, is locked in the front row as provisional pole sitter. On to Lakeshore Boulevard.
Jourdain is trying to find that. Last couple laps, he's been kind of tied up in traffic. Can't get the rhythm going again.
This is his last hot lap, his 14th. And he's quicker. Oh, he's got traffic ahead.
This is where Bourdais got held up by Levine.
Comes turn 7 and our next marker. Lost it. 2/10 off now.
Can't get it done. Traffic, we're talking about how big traffic's going to be. This is a perfect example right here. He had a fast lap going, but just got caught up in traffic. Yep, he's happy about it too.
Yeah, you can see how he feels. He is furious at being balked on his final hot lap. He'll have to come around, cool down both car and driver, and head for the pit lane. Bruno Junqueira has fired the engine, but he's running out of time. Coming up on 8.5 minutes, and Paul Tracy,
put his second set on.
That's right. He went out on scuffed tires and took pole. Has his last set of stickers on.
He had just 1 lap on his first set when that red came out, so they barely had a scuff. They were still effectively stickers.
Here in Toronto, Paul Tracy's best start was 2nd. He's done it twice. In 1993 when he went on to win the race, and last year.
Bourdais moving his way up, currently 5th at a 59.4. So he looks like he's starting to learn the racetrack.
And he has laps in hand. He's working his 11th of 15 with 8 minutes to go.
And you see Bruno, that's when Bruno came out of the pits on his cold tires, fortunately Bourdais was not on a quick lap there. But that's what I was talking about. When a car comes out on cold tires, all they can do is hug the left, but you need every inch of road. Even though it's flat out, that bend onto the back straightaway, you do need all the track. So you can't easily go around the outside of a guy without cracking the throttle.
You'll see Bourdais come in. I think he still has a second set of Bridgestone tires, so he'll be making his way in. We got about 7.5 minutes left. So you need to come in, get that new set on, and get back out. I mean, these conditions, anything can happen. We've seen rain here and there, and it easily could turn things around again.
I'm not sure he has another set. It depends on whether he put the new ones on to go back out. I would think with only 7 minutes to go, he'd be hustling back to the pits a little quicker. Nope, he was just cooling them off.
He's got empty track in front of him. Sebastian Bourdais puts the hammer down. Whoa. On to Lakeshore Boulevard.
A little slickery out there.
Oh, boy.
It's interesting radio communication we just intercepted from Bruno's team. They said, Tracy is coming in behind you. Do not let him by.
Block him? Would that be?
Now, we saw Jourdain really upset. I couldn't tell which Erdez car it was in front of him, but that was a case
Fernandez.
where it was it Fernandez?
It looked like, no, Fernandez. It looked
It
like
said
Fernandez.
Quaker State. I think
it was one of the Erdez cars.
They all have Quaker State on the rear wing. So.
That's right.
But it did not look like he was looking. You see Bourdais down the escape road there in 8, I think. But my point is that I understand why Jourdain is upset. Part of it is the dynamic of these sessions where you're trying to find a spot, but whoever was in that car looked to just be kind of lollygagging around. It could have easily pulled off line to get out of the way.
And that's what needs to happen, and that's why these guys are getting tipped over. Once one guy does it, if he keeps getting away with it, you can listen to that. There must be getting some wetness on the racetrack, because that car jumped out from underneath him. That shouldn't have happened then. You can actually see, I mean, look up here, you can see some rain coming down in a few different areas. But as we were saying, once one guy gets away with it, everybody will start doing it.
Now you're going on to Lakeshore Boulevard, 185 miles an hour, and it could be wet in front of you.
Fellas, if this stays dry, expect a bit more speed from Tracy. His report to Tony Sacali, his engineer, during that last stop was he has too much understeer on the higher speed corners. They wound in some front wing, gave him new tires and said, go for it.
I'll tell you, my advice to Paul right here, if it's getting wet, the guy needs to cool it. He's got the pole by 4/10. If he brings out a red, he loses that lap.
That's exactly right.
Yep, so he doesn't want to back it into the wall.
You have 5 minutes left to go. You got some rain coming down. It looks like the track doesn't have it in it to get the job done as we speak. A little bit of traffic in front of him.
Well, Junqueira got burned yesterday by getting his laps in too early, and he was beaten by Junqueira. Right now, Junqueira is out there with more laps than he can possibly use. This is lap 12 for Tracy. Derek Daly.
Neil, he's on the pole by a clear margin. Why take the gamble of a potential red and lose that pole time?
Well, the problem that we've got right now, obviously, is that Junqueira, who we're racing in the championship, he's out there. He waited right until the end. There's always a possibility with the weather clearing up that maybe Junqueira would do a quicker time. So we want to try and make sure that we're ready to respond to that. And basically right now, while we're out there, we're just looking for a clear gap to see if we can do a better lap.
Thank you, Neil.
Oh, boy.
More traffic right there. Oh, Max.
Oh, Max tried to dive out of the way. Well, you can't levitate. And Max has his business to do out there as well. Every driver except Bruno Junqueira has improved over his first round qualifying time. If Paul Tracy loses this lap, yesterday's time would leave him well back in the field. 7th place, if I'm not mistaken.
Now, Tracy's going to make it happen. He's on his 12th lap going to 13. He'll have this lap and one more.
We're sailing in front of him. I know what it feels like, though, to know you got more speed in the car that you haven't shown, too. So, but that red flag is a big hammer waiting if you make the slightest mistake.
I don't know what Paul's second quickest lap of this session would be, but I don't think it would be enough to keep him anywhere near the front row.
To put that lap in perspective, that 58.8 is monstrous. I mean, behind him, everyone's separated by hundredths, and it's 4/10 from first to second.
Bruno Junqueira locking up the inside front, the right front there. Ooh, light him up. Spinning rears. Left, right, left combination coming to the start finish.
Less than 3 minutes to go, as you can see at the upper left of your screen.
59.6.
17 previous runnings of this race, only one Canadian has sat on pole for the champ car Molson Grand Prix of Toronto. That was Jacques Villeneuve, a future Formula One world champion back in 1995.
Actually, there you have your answer. Paul Tracy just did a 59.1. Now the risk is ameliorated somewhat, because if he caused the red his next best lap is good enough for P3 right now.
That's right. He'd be inside row 2.
So he can really throw it down on this last one.
This would be the lap for Bruno, too. We're seeing it. These fastest laps are coming about right now. Looks like he's on a quick lap. Tracy's in front of him.
No, Tracy peels off. Headed for the pit lane.
He's played his hand.
And he had a lap to give, did Paul Tracy. It's dry right now.
59.3 for Bruno.
He does go
quicker than yesterday.
He could do it right here.
Clear track.
Almost precisely 5/10 on this lap.
What's almost precisely?
That's an approximation.
Down in turn 3, 2/10 slower.
You hear the wheel spin when they pop over up over that rise. That was one of the areas on this track where the traction control last year was working overtime. Caught Max Pappas out earlier. Still behind on the splits.
Not going to make it happen.
I'll tell you, that lap, 58.8, that is something.
He's got time to get another one started.
Tracy, Junqueira, Jourdain, Tagliani.
That car looks loose.
59.4, a 10th slower than last lap. And he's past the good spot on those tires, the goodie lap, as you call it, Scott. This is his eighth lap, probably his 5th flying lap.
I think he should probably just call it a day. 31 seconds to go. 29.
Is that a specific approximation? There's a big scrum of reporters at Paul Tracy's pit. This is Patrick Carpentier. Currently 6th, 3rd Canadian. Alex Tagliani is 4th on the provisional grid.
This will be the last lap. Carpentier.
Bourdais is done. He is in.
3/10 down, going into 3.
Now 3/10 down to Paul doesn't mean he can't pull himself up maybe in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th.
Boy, it's tight through here. Cheer beginning to go up from the crowd as Paul Tracy climbs out of his car.
Half second down now. Last few turns. Come to start finish. This left-hander coming straight up.
Shift right in the middle of the corner.
Checkered flag out as Carpentier crosses with his fast lap of the session on his 14th and final hot lap of 59.364, putting him 5th. And there is PT and his mother Vivian. What a moment for Tracy. And don't let him tell you otherwise. 2nd Canadian ever on the pole here in Toronto. His 3rd pole of the season, the 16th of his career.
Everybody to a very happy family scene here. Paul Tracy with his mom, Vivian. She is enjoying the celebrations. 15th pole of Paul's career. I could ask her what it's like, but I know she'd gush all over me. But Paul, that was a monster lap, that pole lap. It really was a monster.
It was good. I was surprised at the time because I did a 59.4 and I knew it wasn't good enough. I had one more lap and I could see the rain was starting to come on my visor, and I gave it one more and it popped up a 58.8. So it's, I mean, it's just, this is a monumental achievement for players to be on the pole in Toronto. It's their last appearance here for players, so I'm glad I could get the job done, and you know, it was just a great day.
Paul, we were concerned about the gamble of you being out there with the rain that you spoke about and potentially having a problem and then lose the pole lap.
Well, we sat and waited for a minute. Everybody went, and Pat went quick, and then as soon as I went on the track, it started to rain, and Max crashed, and that kind of screwed us up, and I thought we were finished. I thought we were going to end up about 6th or 7th quickest, and then we sat and waited a little longer. The track, the rain went away.
I mean, after you set the pole time, you already had the pole, but then you still continued to run.
Well, we were waiting because there was time left. We were going to wait and see if Bruno was going to go quick. I had a fresh set of tires. And I thought I could do one more lap, and I was even with my lap, and then I lost a tenth in the last sector, and then I came in. So that was, and then we just had to wait the last 4 minutes to see what Bruno could do, but he wasn't close. So it's great.
Does Mom like champagne?
I like champagne. Mom likes
champagne. And we're gonna win tomorrow.
Oh yes, there's the voice of Vivian, who of course comes from London, England. Congratulations, everybody.
So that's where that Paul Tracy confidence comes from.
Is it just me, or does she sound like Sharon Osbourne? Her accent.
Well, here's a look at the results. The top three in the championship, Tracy, Zuncchera, and Jourdain, will start 1, 2, and 3 in tomorrow's race. Canadians 1, 4 in the person of Alex Tagliani, and 5 in Patrick Carpentier. Then top rookie Sebastian Bourdais, followed by Roberto Moreno. A good run for him. Oriol Servia, no doubt a bit disappointment. Jimmy Vasser is 9th, and Adrian Fernandez is 10th. Darren Manning is the second quickest rookie in the field, followed by Mario Dominguez, last year's Rookie of the Year. Thiago Montero in his return after missing a race with a slight concussion. With Ryan Hunter-Reay, Max Pappas, Mario Haberfeld. Alex Sparafico debuts in 18th place on the grid, one spot ahead of his teammate, Jeff Boss. Now let's go to Calvin Fish.
Here with Bruno. Bruno, that session was very much a lottery. Talk about the run that you had.
Yeah, I wait until the end to go out and rain a little bit. Then I could improve much my time.
The car looked extremely loose on the monitor. How are you hanging on to it there?
Yeah, I was really loose. Unfortunately, Sebastian tested something in the morning. They said that was better, but I think he doesn't have... He's fast, but he doesn't know about cars and doesn't have much experience. I don't know. And he put on my car, and the car was really loose.
Was it a change that if you'd had a second run on another set of tires, could you have moved back to the original setup?
Yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, I mean, when you were ready to go out on the first set, with 30 minutes to go, it started to rain, and I just find out that the car was much worse. Too late.
Too late, but you'll start from the front row tomorrow, Bob.
Well, Bruno, tell us how you really feel about your teammate. This is the FIA Formula 3000 champion we're talking about here.
That's a pretty...
Bob Bexon, the president and CEO of Imperial Tobacco, waving that pole flag, that all-important pole flag for Paul Tracy in Player's final appearance here in Toronto. A great qualifying session for Tracy. We'll be back in a moment to Canada.
Again to the streets of Toronto, Canada. Qualifying is over. Tracy's are celebrating, but you believe you had a faster car.
Well, I'm sure maybe he had a faster lap going, but for sure I had a much faster lap going than what I had. But I just had a lot of traffic, and there, Mario, I don't know. I mean, what it's really frustrating is that everybody's doing it every time and nobody does nothing to them. You know, it's very clear in the rule book that if you're slowing down, you have to let everybody go by, and nobody's doing it, and it just kills me.
Thank you, Michelle. Remember his performance on the streets of Long Beach. If we see anything like that tomorrow, it'll be monster. Calvin?
Well, his teammate celebrates the pole, but Patrick, 5th on the grid. Did you leave the run a little too late?
Yeah, I did. And some of these guys, you know, they go out there and they just keep running, and they're just running slow, and they're not going faster, but they just keep pacing around the racetrack, and it makes it difficult to qualify. Once you've done your fast lap, even if you got 15 laps, and you know it's done, you should come in. And I was stuck in traffic, and by the time I did my lap, the tires were had lost their optimum speed, and it should have been high 58s, low 59s, but the car is good at least, so we'll see. I want to challenge PT there. I'm a bit disappointed.
All right, mate. Have a good run tomorrow. Bob?
All right, thanks very much. Now, I realize that English is not Bruno Junqueira's first language, but with no poles and no wins says that the guy with 4 poles and 3 wins doesn't know much about race cars. It's got to make you wonder. We'll be right back. Full coverage of qualifying for the Molson.
Pretty good right now. Dag, sorry to disturb you. 4th, Canada, you got to feel pretty good. This team, I mean, this combination of you and this team has been remarkably good.
Yeah, I have to say, I have to take my hat off for the whole Johnson Control team. The engineers, it's the first time they've seen Toronto. I told them by phone what kind of track it was, but when we came here, we were a little bit, you know, scared not to have the perfect car to start with, but especially with the weather condition, I mean, we didn't have a lot of track time to be able to work on the setup, and we finally had a very good car. We were on a very good lap. I think it didn't came out the way we wanted, but 4th, I mean, it's just very good for this new team.
And good probably tomorrow. Thank you, Tag. Calvin?
Down here with Sebastian Bourdais qualifying on the third row. Sebastian, I know it's not what you wanted. How was your run this afternoon?
It's been a whole weekend of frustration. First, the weather was really against the rookies, definitely, because even this morning the conditions were really difficult since we are pretty in good shape because we were P1 this morning. But for this qualifying session, it just was so much traffic that it's nearly impossible to put a lap together, and got problem with Lavin, so it's how it is. It's always like that.
All right, Seb, good luck tomorrow. Bob?
Well, that's the story of street racing. Traffic, traffic, traffic. Here's a look at the final results of qualifying, the grid for Sunday's Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Toronto. Paul Tracy and Bruno Junqueira on the front row. Biggest gainers on the day, the man you just heard from, Sebastian Bourdais. He and fellow rookie Ryan Hunter-Reay each gained 4 spots from Friday's first to Saturday's second round of qualifying. Final thoughts, gentlemen? Tommy Kendall?
I mean, I was starting to like Sebastian. Why did he have to do that to Bruno?
Yeah, we're going to be talking about that one for a while, aren't we?
I'm impressed with the Canadians. We have 3 in the top 5, but as well, we talked, as we opened the show, here we got players, Newman Haas and Ray Hall, top 3 positions. So it's still a hardcore fight for the championship.
Don't forget, you can catch the Molson Champ Car Grand Prix of Toronto on CBS Sports, Sunday beginning at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS Sports. Be sure to check your local listings. And don't forget, coming up later today, the Toyota Atlantic Championship from the streets of Toronto, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time for that. Until then, for Tommy Kendall, Scott Pruitt, Calvin Fish, and Derek Daly, I'm Bob Barsha. So long from the streets of Toronto, Canada.